So are you going to start or am I going to start?
I'll start us off.
Okay.
All right. Hello, everyone we have joining us this afternoon or morning, depending on where you are. I am so excited that you all are here to connect with us and learn more about the University of Pittsburgh from a parent perspective. My name is Lauren Wallace, and I am the Director of Undergraduate Recruitment at the University of Pittsburgh. And as you can see behind me, I am also a 2 and soon to be 3-time Pitt alum. So very engaged with the university and excited to do this new and innovative opportunity. I have with me the star of this presentation, Dr. Joe McCarthy, who is the Vice Provost for Undergraduate Studies at the University of Pittsburgh and is here to answer any questions you all may have today, particularly from a parent perspective. Dr. Joe McCarthy, could you introduce yourself a little bit and tell the parents here what is your role at Pitt and what does that mean for their questions?
Yeah, great. Thank you, Lauren. Hi, everybody. I'm really excited to be spending this time with everyone. I want to start out just by explaining what the heck a Vice Provost for Undergraduate Studies is, so you know what kinds of questions I might be prepared to answer for you. Vice Provost for Undergraduate Studies means that it's my job to be sure that all of our students have a great academic experience while they're undergraduates at Pitt. So that means I work on program development, I work on student success. We've recently focused for the last couple of years on personalized education, right? And what we mean by that is we're really trying to enable our students, give them the tools to empower them to really customize their academic experience so it supports their ability to live lives of impact once they graduate. Just a little bit about myself. I'm actually a father of 4. I've been at Pitt for 22 years. I'm a faculty member in the School of Engineering, in chemical engineering specifically. Of my 4 kids, 2 are college age, 2 are high school age. One is in fact a freshman at Pitt. She's double majoring in the College of Business Administration. So a year ago today, I was in the same boat as all of you, trying to decide what's going to be best for my daughter. I'm thrilled to say that she not only chose Pitt, but she likes Pitt even more than I could have hoped. She might love the place more than I do. She serves as a pathfinder, so she's often out on campus giving tours. And in fact, I'd like her to come over and say hello to you real quickly. Meg, say hello to our friend.
Hi, everyone. Well, I'm sad that I couldn't meet you in person today. I thought it would be nice to hop on and tell you my favorite tour fact. So I just wanted to let you all know that Posvar Hall, one of our main academic buildings, has more escalators than the entire state of Wyoming. And I think that's just something really fun about Pitt. Great to meet you all.
Thank you, Megan. So I'm ready to dive right in. Please feel free to ask questions. Lauren will feed them to me, and we'll try and get as much out of the way for you to help you make this decision.
Yeah, so I have a question to start. We just saw a student, and as parents are researching with their students, one of the impressive statistics about Pitt is we have 19,000 undergraduate students just about, but we still have a 14-to-1 student to faculty ratio. So what does that mean for our students? How are they able to connect with the faculty at Pitt? What opportunities does that lead to?
Yeah, great question, Lauren. What that means is that our students have a lot of opportunity to specialize their studies. So a lot of our classes wind up being quite small once the students get through some foundational larger classes as freshmen and sophomores. So when they're juniors and seniors, they're going to be in very small sort of discussion type classes that are going to be really specific to the kinds of things that they're passionate about. It also means that there's a lot of opportunity for our students to get involved in research labs, to do experiential studies with their faculty of choice.
Excellent. So in talking about the different ways that students can connect to their class experience, when do students typically start that class registration process, and how do students go about selecting the courses that would be best for them?
Yeah, so that's a little bit different for the new students coming on board in the fall versus the students that are continuing on at Pitt. Our students right now that are currently at Pitt are finishing up that process right now, so we're getting them all signed up for classes in the fall. We do reserve plenty of space in classes for our incoming freshmen. That process starts Shortly after May, mid-May, students start getting involved in their online orientation activities, and they'll meet with their advisor virtually, and they'll be able to get their classes scheduled in late May and through June.
Excellent. So what sort of things are students studying at the University of Pittsburgh? Is there something specific that we're known for, or is it okay for students to be completely undecided?
Yeah, excellent question. One of the only really defining characteristics of a Pitt undergraduate is that they're intellectually curious. I actually looked up this morning. We have more than 100 majors, and I noticed that in the last 2 years, we've had more than 400 different combinations of those majors that our students have actually graduated with. Somewhere in the neighborhood of about 20% of our students graduate with double majors, and even more than that, probably closer to 80%, do what I call decorate their program a little bit, meaning that they add minors or certificates. We actually have this really new and innovative credential that we just started this year. We launched something that we call distinctions. We have a global distinction and an honors distinction. And what that really is it's this really neat curated experience where the students combine what they're learning in the classroom and they translate that to experiential outside the classroom activities. And that credential is recognizing that combination of classroom learning and real life experience in a unique way.
Great. So talking about unique combinations, how difficult is it for students who are maybe interested in a double major in, say, the Dietrich School or the business school?
Right. So we have two different types of ways that students can combine degree programs. We have double majors when they're taking two different majors that are housed in the same school. And then we have often what we call dual degrees. So students are actually taking majors. They're doing studies that are from two different institutions within Pitt. And what I've been working on in the last year or so is actually taking that second one. So the first one where you're double majoring, it's seamless. We actually have students that are triple majoring, and that's really a very easy thing to do because the general education requirements are uniform, and they're really just taking those in major courses. So if they choose their elective course as well, they can actually do that in a fairly small footprint and not really spend extra time at the university. The dual degrees right now are something that there's been a lot more demand in those areas. And so we've actually been trying to facilitate that where students can cross over those school boundaries. And we've even had some really cool, innovative joint programs across schools. So our School of Computing and Information just recently launched a program with the Dietrich School called Digital Narrative and Interactive Design. So it's actually kind of a combination of digital storytelling and game design where they're actually doing some of this sort of English stuff, this liberal arts thinking that you get from the arts and sciences school, and they're combining it with this computational technology that you would get out of at the School of Computing and Information. It's a really cool program, and every year I'm seeing more and more of these joint programs across schools.
That's excellent. So with so many options, undecided students might feel like there's so much, I don't know exactly what to land on. What sort of resources within advising or within Pitt really help undecided students find their path?
Yeah, great question. So the Dietrich School has a really outstanding advising center where they have this suite of advisors that are going to work with students for the first 2 years while they're in that school to help them really explore. And they've come up with some really innovative academic tools where they actually combine certain classes in thematic ways so that students can actually explore these mini themes. But I'll go back to that transcript, those distinctions that I mentioned earlier. Those are a nice bite-sized academic chunk that you can actually test the waters and really get an idea of a different major. But we have lots of tools. We're working on ways for students to really see a connection between the clubs that they enjoy and the job that they might want to get down the road and the courses that they like so they can really plan out that academic experience so that it's something that they're just happy to go do every day.
Excellent, excellent. So I know we have a lot of students who come in with AP or IB credits or dual enrollment credits from college and high school. How is that incorporated into the academic programs at Pitt?
Great question. So The AP and IB credits, we actually process those from the disciplines where those courses are traditionally offered at Pitt. So, for example, we'll go and talk to the history faculty about what course is equivalent at Pitt for those AP credits. And so we have on the admissions website and on the Dietrich School's website, we have a slate that shows you exactly how you would translate those credits. And that's really one of the ways that our students can jump into double majoring and triple majoring as often as they do, is a lot of them come in with some AP credit, and we're pretty generous in that area.
Excellent. So I know one of the ways that Pitt really does help a student personalize their education and get a robust experience is the way that they're able to engage in research very early, and also engage with specialized advisors for majors such as things within pre-med. Can you talk about the advising we have for medical professions and then also research opportunities?
Sure, excellent question. So as I mentioned earlier, we do have a couple of different entrance ways for students to come into the University of Pittsburgh. We actually have 5 schools that admit students as freshmen. They all operate a little bit differently when it comes to students getting involved in research, but we'll use the Dietrich School because that's by far our largest as a great example. They have a program that they call First Experiences in Research that students can get involved in very early. And so they can figure out what their passions are from a research standpoint. But all of the other schools have a different variant of that. Some of it they're trying to teach students through experiences, through research, what the different disciplines do within their particular school to help them choose a major. But particularly for students that are interested in pre-med, and I recall now that you asked me what is something that Pitt's really excellent at, and I didn't get to that one earlier. Pre-med is really an outstanding thing for a student at Pitt to aspire to. We have what we call the Pitt Interprofessional Center on Health Careers, right? So we call it Pitt Health Careers, PIC Health Careers. And that is this really innovative thing that we did where at the graduate level, we have this drive nationally for faculty and practitioners to cross boundaries from pharmacy, working with nursing, working with physicians, working with occupational therapy and physical therapy, really to do interprofessional work to maximize the utility and the efficacy of that care. And that's really never been pushed down into the undergraduate space except at Pitt. So Pitt Health Careers focuses on that. We actually focus on advising so that people can explore all of those different options in an effective way and really know where they're going to fit into the healthcare field. But we also do some programming where we're teaching them how to be even better once they get out into the field and interact with colleagues in different but complementary fields. So I think pre-med is a great way. We don't actually have a pre-med major, and the reason that we don't have a pre-med major is because we want the students to actually follow their passions and take that knowledge from a discipline and focus that and feed that into their experience in medical school. We do have some certificate programs that really help them to knock out all the prerequisites and the requirements for going to medical school, but we want them to find a discipline that they're passionate about rather than having sort of a generic catch-all. We want them to be specific, and we'll give them the bits that they need to fill in to go from there. One of the reasons that we have that very strong focus on health, and thank goodness COVID-19 was something that we're attacking vigorously at Pitt and getting national attention for. But you look at Pitt and we have some of the best programs in essentially any health-related field that you look at, from nursing to physical therapy to pharmacy. These are all nationally ranked programs at Pitt.
Excellent. So I can see we're getting a lot more chats, which means we may have had new people join us. So for those of you who are here for the middle of the conversation, Dr. Joe McCarthy, Vice Provost for Undergraduate Studies, is here answering your questions. Another thing that I'll add, just in case we don't get to all of the questions within the next 30 minutes, that text number that you use to register for the event today, you can send specific questions there. So any questions that you have will get answered today, whether formally between Dr. Joe McCarthy and myself or after this program, you'll leave with no questions. But one really strong question that did did come in, Dr. McCarthy, we have a lot of students who come in with a pre-professional track in mind. Some of them majors do exist, for example, things within our School of Health and Rehab Sciences, but others, it's just a track like pre-med. How do those students who are coming in thinking of majors that they join a little bit later, for example, applied developmental psychology or a rehab sciences major, how does that process go for them when they're currently enrolled as a Pitt student?
Okay, so those students, the first thing I would tell those students is that they should engage with Pitt Health Careers as early as possible, right? Because that center, those advisors are really experts. So students will have their own academic advisors within whatever unit they were admitted to, whether it be the Dietrich School or the nursing school or the Swanson School of Engineering. But they should also engage with the specialists over in Pitt Health Careers, because they'll give them advice on what courses are going to be great feeders to those professional schools or into those professional programs, and help them really maximize their ability to be successful in those fields. So we do have, as Lauren mentioned, we do have professional programs, so students can go from the Dietrich School straight into the School of Health and Rehab Sciences, and they can do athletic training, or they can do rehab science. They can do a couple of baccalaureate level professional degree programs in the health field. Similarly, we can have them prepare for graduate work in those health fields as well. So if they're going on to be physicians, or if they want to get a PharmD, that's another program where they go ahead and get onboarded from Pitt. Because we have that School of Pharmacy, students that were going to pursue that would actually start within the Dietrich School, and after 2 years, they transition into the School of Pharmacy. But that's a typical.
That's a similar process for like School of Ed as well.
Sure. The School of Ed is also one of our what we call upper division schools. So it's a school that some of our students would then matriculate to after they've completed 2 years within the Dietrich School. But so we really, students very often, most of our students funnel through the Dietrich School. Those advisors are really well versed in helping students explore, like we said earlier, and understand what their options are and pick what's the way to customize their degree so that it's really going to be efficacious for what they're trying to study. And so then they can launch from there into the School of Ed, or into the School of Social Work, or into Health and Rehab Sciences, et cetera.
That is great information. Dr. McCarthy, are students able to take any graduate level courses as an undergraduate student?
Yeah, that's a great question. So there's two different ways that students can get involved in graduate studies while they're an undergraduate at Pitt. One is that they can take graduate courses as electives, right? Or because they simply don't, because they have that room within their curriculum. So as we said earlier, Pitt's very generous with AP and IB credits, and we have a very robust college and high school program. So we have a number of our students come into Pitt with a lot of credits to start with. And so if you simply have room, you can take graduate courses before you even graduate as an undergraduate. But those can be used toward your degree, or possibly sometimes just used as electives that you took to enhance your education. We have another suite of programs that we call accelerated degree programs. And what those programs are designed to do is actually shorten graduate study by a year. So while you're a senior in your 4th year at Pitt, you're actually sort of a half-time graduate student and a half-time undergraduate. So you're knocking out a couple of those undergraduate credits while you're getting a head start on those graduate credits. And so that winds up being a really efficient way from both a time and a money standpoint for students that know where they want to go to get a head start on that graduate degree.
Excellent. And again, it looks like we have even more people joining us. So just a reminder, if we don't get to your question today, you can text that number that you registered with, or if you didn't get a chance to register, but you still joined us, we're so happy to have you. You can also email pitt.admissions@pitt.edu as a second way to get your questions answered. And so for those that we have still coming in here, can you talk a little bit specifically about the first experiences in research program we have at Pitt and how students get involved with that?
Yeah, so we have an office within the Dietrich School. So the first experiences in research, we did mention a little bit earlier, but for anybody that just recently joined, we'll make sure that you're caught up. That's specifically within the Dietrich School. So that's 3/4 roughly of our incoming class is going to be admitted into that school. They have an office that facilitates the placement of students. So students go ahead and meet with that office, and that office is a liaison between the students and the biology department and the neuroscience department and psychology and fine arts like studio arts. And they help students funnel into research experiences from there. And they curate those experiences so that there's something that is meaningful, but it's also accessible to students at a young age before they really specialize. So it's a good way for them to get their feet wet and learn about where they want to go.
Excellent. And so talking about getting your feet wet, one of the best ways to do that is a co-op or an internship opportunity. Can you talk about Pitt's opportunities in that space outside of the classroom?
Yeah, excellent. So we have a couple of different avenues for students to get that experiential learning in and to really get practical experience on what they're doing. One is university-wide, what we call the Guaranteed Internship Program, and that's hosted out of Student Affairs. And so students that want to do an internship, there's a training program where they go and work with Student Affairs to be trained on how to get involved in an internship, and every single one of them is guaranteed to get an internship. So Student Affairs really works, the Career and Placement Office works to facilitate getting that placement, and there's jobs both on campus and off campus that are going to be open to students, and will guarantee that they get that experience. In a couple of specific disciplines that are very practice-oriented, like computer science or any of the engineering disciplines, we also have what we call a co-op program. That co-op program is a little bit different. It's actually where students will completely stop out of school for a semester at a time, typically 3 semesters total, but staggered within an on-again, off-again framework, where students actually go and work in a plant or in an industrial setting, getting paid as if they were an entry-level engineer or an entry-level computer scientist, same time they're gaining credit, elective credit, toward their degree. And so they can wind up graduating typically in just over 4 years, 4 years and 8 months, but they have 1 year of real work experience when they complete that. Right now, I think the rate at which that happens in the Swanson School of Engineering is about 60%. So 6 out of 10 of our students engage in that program. And I know from my time running the undergraduate program in chemical engineering, of the students that do that, the placement rate is through the roof. I mean, students get multiple job offers months and months before they graduate. They're really set when they do that. But they're also really well-versed. They know exactly what it is they want to do because they've gotten this great experience. They know what they liked and didn't like about the companies that they worked for. And so they really have a great idea of what they're looking for in an employer when they graduate.
Excellent. So I know that the first year experiences and research is specifically that department run through the Dietrich School, but are business students, engineers, other students connected to research anyway? And if so, how did those students get those opportunities?
Yeah, great question. So students that are admitted to the other schools have very similar programs, but they don't have this mammoth office like that first year experience because they frankly don't have as many students, so they don't need that. They can be a little bit more hands-on with the students individually. So the nursing school, for example, obviously has lots of clinical placements, but those students get involved in research often with bioengineers where they're doing interdisciplinary research to learn about how they can use technology to do even better care of their patients. And that school in particular sends more students to the Council on Undergraduate Research annual meeting than any of our other schools combined, honestly. They send typically 40 or 50 students at a time to that national meeting each year. I know that the engineering school has experiential learning embedded in the freshman engineering program, so students don't choose a discipline as a freshman. They actually are admitted just as engineers. They get to choose that discipline at the end of their freshman year. But during that freshman year, they do these interdisciplinary projects. They get involved in research that might be in sustainability, might be in green energy, but they do this so that they can actually see how those really big grand challenge kinds of problems are attacked from different disciplines. right? And so each of our schools has their own unique twist on how to get those students that experiential learning, that embedded research. But that's the really positive thing about going to an R1 institution like Pitt.
Excellent. So we're continuing to get some questions about the first 2 years at school and how we help undecided students. So I know some people have been on the line the entire time and have heard a couple things about this, but one of the things that I know that's pretty unique to Pitt that we haven't touched on yet is those living learning communities. Could you talk a little bit about how students can engage with those and learn a little bit more about themselves in developing what they might want to major in?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I'll do the best I can with this one. I wish we had some student affairs colleagues because they're the ones that really spearhead the living learning communities. But we do have living learning communities, and what that means is that the students actually go and live in a dorm or on a couple of floors within a dorm with like-minded students that are passionate about the same types of things in terms of what their academic aspirations are and in terms of what their career aspirations are. My daughter, who unfortunately walked out of the room, Megan, who many of you met earlier, she actually lived in the living learning community for business this year. She was in Bruce Hall, right in the quad. She loved it. She thought right being in the center of campus was one of the greatest places to be. But I know that engineering has a living learning community as well. We have a pre-med living learning community. The Honors College has a living learning community. We have a whole bunch of these. I unfortunately don't know all of them, but we have some that are focused explicitly on your academic path like that, and then we have others that are a little bit more sense of belonging focus. So more on the outside the classroom focus. And those are the ones I'm not quite as familiar with.
That's okay. We only needed that teaser from you. We do have Steve Anderson coming on later from Residence Life to talk about living learning communities. So that's just to make sure everyone stays connected with us all day. And I know that is something from a recruitment standpoint, we talk about a way that students can connect to what they might like to do, even where they lay their head, because Pitt really does focus outside of the classroom. One of the questions that I bet you do know a little bit about here is talking about how students connect to research, maybe with even the University Medical School or other departments on campus.
Right. So, I mean, students are encouraged at all times to go ahead and reach out to faculty. Faculty are extremely excited to work with our intellectually curious students, right? Our students, because of the way that they integrate disparate fields like neuroscience and studio arts, for example, or chemistry and painting, they wind up having really unique perspectives. And so faculty are often really excited to have students join them in their research. And so I would encourage all of our students, you find a field that you're excited about, by all means, go straight to the faculty that's the expert in that field. Send them an email, go knock on their door. They're going to be willing to talk to you about the potential to get involved in research. And when people get involved in research, they often are doing it for credit. So you're doing this as an elective credit. Typically somewhere like 10 hours a week would be equivalent to a 3-credit course. But certain students, depending on how enthusiastic they are, whether or not that principal investigator, that faculty member has research money, they actually sometimes can do this as a part-time job as well. So there's a number of different ways. We have formal programs like we've mentioned earlier, but we also have the informal programs where you just reach out to faculty members. I know my colleagues in chemical engineering, some of them have 3 or 4 undergraduates working in their lab at any given time. I used to have more like 2 because I like to have a smaller, tighter knit group, but really there's very few faculty that don't engage with undergraduates in some capacity in the lab.
Excellent. So a couple of questions have come in regarding life after Pitt or even life at Pitt in some of those accelerated programs that you touched on a little bit earlier. So for accelerated degree programs, are those all going to be 5-year programs, 6-year programs? What sort of options are available there for students?
Yeah, so those accelerated degrees are designed typically to be an undergraduate baccalaureate degree combined with a master's degree of some kind. Okay, so the master's degree is typically a 2-year program. All of our undergraduate degrees, other than the co-op, which is just a little bit longer than 4 years, as I mentioned earlier, but all of our undergraduate degrees are designed to be 4 years. And so When you combine those, if you did them in sequence, it would be a 6-year commitment. What we have is what we would call sort of a 4+1 model. So we try and treat the student primarily as an undergraduate in that senior year, even though they're making that transition into graduate school. The reason we do that is we don't want to harm federal financial aid that those students might have. We want them to be able to maintain their scholarships while they're still completing that undergraduate portion of their studies, but we're allowing them to get a head start on their graduate degree. So it's called a 4+1 because it's really still the 4-year undergraduate experience, and we're just tacking on now 1 year instead of 2 years for that master's degree.
That's great. And what does Pitt do to help students prepare for graduate school outside of connecting them early with research?
Great question. It depends on the discipline, but sometimes we have training programs for taking those preparatory tests like an MCAT or a GMAT or the LSAT. We have preparatory programs to help you take those standardized tests. We also have a lot of seminars, right? So each of the schools, because we have a very robust graduate program across the university that is very amenable to taking Pitt undergraduates into those graduate programs, they're very committed to educating our undergraduates, giving them seminars, teaching them what is required to get admission into graduate programs, how they can be successful in those graduate programs, what they need to do to prepare.
Excellent. So I know one thing that maybe people haven't mentioned yet, but is on everyone's mind. What are some of the sort of adjustments that Pitt has made in consideration of what has been going on this spring and maybe what may happen in the fall as far as online education and learning? What sort of things are we already thinking about, even if things haven't been decided just yet?
Okay. Yeah, great question. And obviously that's something that's top of mind for everybody. Pitt and UPMC working together really been at the forefront of COVID-19 response, both on the research side, working on testing, and on the research side, working toward that vaccine. Right. But at the same time, something that's maybe not as nationally known is that Pitt's been really in the forefront in the response to how we should handle this, both on an academic and a social basis. Right. So Western Pennsylvania is been shown to be much slower in growth of the virus here, in part because we were a leader in how you should respond. And folks within the community and across Western Pennsylvania took the lead from Pitt and followed that. So we've had an outstanding response from our University Center for Teaching and Learning on how we can make the transition to remote learning. That's been really, really successful. I've personally been keeping track of students, making sure they're still engaged. I've been text messaging a bunch of students when I see that they haven't logged on in a while to make sure that we know that they're okay and that they're still pursuing their studies. We've been able to get loaner machines because sometimes students one of the students spilled a whole cup of water on their computer, their laptop, and now their lifeline to their classes was gone, but we got a computer sent out to them the very next day. And so we've really been working hard to smooth that transition for students right now, but we're engaging in a very detailed self-study to see what worked and what was a little bit more challenging than we had anticipated, so that we're prepared that if things have to be a little bit different in the fall than is traditional, we're ready to do it. We're game planning. We're moving forward with a positive outlook that we expect and hope that we're going to have the same kind of Pitt experience in the fall that we always do, but we don't want to be naive. And so we're preparing for everything. And what I can guarantee you is that we're going to have the best academic experience that's available anywhere in the country, because Pitt's being really nimble, being really forward thinking about this and making sure that we're addressing these concerns, keeping our students safe, number one, but making sure that they're getting an outstanding education as a very close second.
Excellent. And for this summer, the orientation, so interestingly enough, we know that our orientation was already virtual. Another, pre-thinking Pitt has already done. But what does it mean as far as what students should be doing during the summer, connecting with their advisors? Can you allay any kind of fears or concerns people have about being able to keep in touch with Pitt as they get ready to transition into their freshman year?
Yeah. I mean, we got experience with this last year, as you said, Lauren. We had an online onboarding for students last year. So we again engaged in a self-study. We made it even better for this coming year, taking some of the lessons we learned from this semester as well to make that the best experience possible. I personally thought it was great. I went through that online from a parent perspective last year with Megan, and really saw Pitt in a different way, which was really kind of fun for me. But this is really set up to make that onboarding as seamless as possible. Our advisors are really adept now at connecting remotely. It's something that they've been doing, like I said earlier in the broadcast. For those that didn't hear it, our continuing students are enrolling right now, so they've all been meeting with their advisors over the last 2 weeks to really discuss their academic goals and what courses are going to be best suited toward that. So the advisors really have had a lot of experience with this. They're ready to dive in there and connect with students and help them get on board. But we have, virtual communities and Pitt Wire Live is a way that we're connecting people across the community right now virtually in unique ways. So we're trying to stay connected even while we're sort of separate together in this current time.
Excellent. And so I know that there are some concerns out there about what if I need to defer my admissions to the spring or defer for a year. And I know our office in admissions is very supportive of that and will help students through that process. But can you speak to anything that we'll be doing just to make sure that students know you're not behind at Pitt? If you have to defer or if you start in the spring, we have things going on in spring and summer to make sure students stay connected the same way as if they've been able to start in fall.
Yeah, so our students, we've always had courses offered in the summer. We have an incoming cadre of students, a cohort of students in the spring every year. So we are very familiar with those kind of non-traditional starts. This summer, in fact, we have an increase of almost 20% of enrollment on the Pittsburgh campus in the summer because students, some of them have had to return from study abroad earlier than expected because of the crisis. And so we wanted to expand opportunities for them in the summer so that they're able to fill in the gap on any of those credits. So we're very flexible with students starting when it suits them, when it's safe for them to do so. We do fully intend on having a full fall semester. So that fall semester is going to happen. It's going to be, like I said earlier, an excellent academic experience. It may be a hybrid, it may be business as usual, but we're going to make sure that we have a fall semester. Students that want to jump in, that are anxious to get started, absolutely can, and they're not going to be behind. Students that are a little bit more unsure and want to take some time, that's certainly okay as well, but we'll be ready to accommodate them as well.
Excellent. And I know people may have questions about that too, from a financial perspective. So just letting you all know, we do have a financial aid presentation that will follow this at 1 o'clock, where you can ask those questions about how deferrals impact finances, the FAFSA, and things of that nature. So we've definitely got you all covered. We did get another question coming in about being able to do things like study abroad and co-oping and taking advantage of opportunities within the professional program. So I know you already detailed research and engineering, that sort of thing. The question was specific to nursing. And I know that Pitt really does a good job of making sure that a curriculum doesn't define what students are able to do outside of the classroom, because that's very important to us. So can you talk about some of those professional school programs and how students are still able to connect to opportunities outside of the classroom?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. So as far as co-op is concerned, and specifically within the nursing school, we're a bit limited there, right? Because it would be illegal for us to actually have those students working as practicing nurses before they've completed their studies and been certified, right? So what they do there is they have clinicals right, where they're getting experiences in a supervised way. So it's a bit different than a co-op program, and we can't, frankly, do a co-op program in those kinds of professional disciplines where a license is expected before you practice. Okay, but even in those cases, we make sure that students are having experiential learning, but they're having that experiential learning in a supervised way that actually makes sure that we're complying with laws and educating our students and performing what we want to perform. As far as study abroad is concerned, we have a really robust study abroad program. It's been fantastic. The University Center for International Studies is where we host our study abroad, but they partner very, very closely with each of the schools. And so each of the schools have some curated study abroad experiences where, for example, if you're in the business school or the School of Engineering, you can actually do what's called a +3, where you can go and learn about the coffee industry or you can learn about the automotive industry or the cell phone industry in those study abroad activities. We have somewhere in the neighborhood of, I think, 2,500 of our students studying abroad in any given year. So we have an awful lot of students that take advantage of this. One of the reasons that we built that global distinction that I mentioned earlier, and I'll just remind people what that is it's a unique credential that we've developed at Pitt that's almost like a minor, but it's actually half academic and half experiential. Okay, so one of the reasons that we built that credential is because students like those in the School of Nursing, right, they've always been enthusiastic about studying abroad, and they have studied abroad and been very successful with that, but they haven't been able to commit the same number of credits toward a certificate program, for example, that a student that has a little bit less structured of a degree program might be able to, right? So they don't have room for 15 or 18 credits to get that global certificate. So instead, with the distinction, what a nurse can do is they can do that study abroad that they've always done, get credit for that as an experiential activity. And now if they can squeeze in just 9 credits of classroom activities that are globally focused, they can get this global distinction. So we've actually done this as part of the personalized ed program, trying to make sure that our students really have every opportunity possible to customize their degree and achieve their academic goals.
Excellent. So we have about 4 minutes left. So I'm going to get ready to do some quick housekeeping items for everyone who's listening. But for you, Dr. McCarthy, I want you to think about a quick response to this. So Pitt has been ranked the #1 public university in Pennsylvania by Times Higher Education and the Wall Street Journal. So from where you sit, why do you think, if you could think of the one thing that you're most familiar with, that would be a reason that would lead Pitt to get that ranking? Our work on COVID-19 aside, right? Best medical programs aside, what would you think is the thing that really stands out for us? So I'll let you chew on that for 1 second. And then for those people who are listening in on the call right now, we wanted to get to all of your questions. I know there'll be a couple still lingering because we've really got some good momentum going. You can text your questions to the number you used to register if you had a chance to register that way. If you did not, no worries at all. You can go to pitt.admissions@pitt.edu and you can send us an email and we'll get all of your questions answered that way. So nothing that's left in the chat now is going unanswered. Even if we didn't touch on it, we'll get an answer to you as soon as possible. We have a whole team still working to answer questions. So you have those 2 options. The final piece, we're going to give you all a little bit of a break. And then 1 o'clock, we will have a financial aid presentation to get all of those questions answered. Okay, so you've had about 60 seconds to think about it, Dr. McCarthy. What do you think really stands out as part of a Pitt education that would get us high rankings, but also just be a place that, to quote yourself, this is a place where students can live lives of impact and forge their own path?
Yeah, so that's an excellent question. And what I've determined is I can't give you just one answer, okay, right? I mean, Pitt's got that #1 public institution in the Northeast ranking because our students are phenomenal. Our students come in intellectually curious and passionate about their learning. Our students are successful. We have some of the highest retention and graduation rates of any institution across the country. But we have world-class programs in essentially every single area that you can think of. You think about humanities, and we have the #1 philosophy program in the world. You think about pre-professional programs like the health sciences. We already went over how fantastic those are. The professional programs like accounting and in CBA, we're ranked in the top 12, I believe it is, as undergraduate programs. So we're ranked across the board. Engineering is fantastic. Everywhere you look, we have very, very strong programs, but we have a student-focused experience at Pitt where we're really driving towards student success, driving towards students being able to customize their education and get out of Pitt exactly what they want to get out of Pitt. I think that's why we have the reputation that we do.
Great. And the last question, more personal in the last 60 seconds. Why Pitt for Megan? Tuition remission aside, why would you trust the University of Pittsburgh with your own daughter?
I mean, for me, it was her choice. It wasn't my choice. So why was I thrilled that she chose Pitt? I was thrilled because I saw how her eyes lit up when she came on campus, when she hangs out with her Pitt friends, just the experience, the sense of belonging that she feels with that group, the academic experience she's getting is just second to none. So I'm thrilled that she chose it, but it was 100% her decision.
Excellent. Well, we've had a great time with all of you. Thank you so much, Dr. McCarthy, for this great conversation. I hope you all felt engaged. You learned as much. I learned some things even as an alum. And so you were really able to take something away. We are glad to answer any questions you have. pitt.admissions@pitt.edu. Text to that number that you joined us at. Please take a short break. Join us back if you have financial aid questions. And then, as I mentioned later on today, we will have connections for you for students affairs, residence life, anything that you need to learn as you make this big and life-altering decision. Thank you so much for your time spent with us today. Hail to Pitt.